Hello and welcome to another Thursday night Q&A. I'm joined tonight, happy to say, by my colleague Dean Kinsella from the assessment team, who used to do a lot of these, and then we've had a bit of a gap, so I've not been with Dean on one of these Q&As for a long while. But hey, always good to see you, Dean. How are you?
Sam, good to see you again. Good to see everybody. I am fantastic, raring to go. Had a great day today. Been out there meeting you guys, chewing the fat, giving you guys something to work with. You guys have been feeding back some great information, so it's nice to be here tonight as well. So thanks, Sam. Thanks all.
Yeah, and it was good. We were just talking about. I was last with Dean a couple of weeks ago at NICEIC 2025 when it was at the Alexandra Palace, and we had two cracking days there, didn't we? It was really good.
Oh, we had such a good turnout, Sam. We had so many of our contracts coming over, speaking to us outside of the normal environment in which we meet them. Loads of questions and answers. We had a look at the fault finding board, discuss some BS 7671, have a look at training courses, and just catching up and speaking to them in a different environment. It was really great. Great turnout for everybody. Yeah, had a great time.
Yeah, really good. And we've got ELEX Exeter coming up soon, and then further events later in the year. So yeah, please keep an eye out on social media, and if you do attend the ELEX events, please do come and see us. Come and find the NIC stand and come and have a chat with us. We want to talk to you.
100% we do, and hopefully I'll get tickets. I might even see somebody there as well. I'll try my best.
Okay, so as with all of our live Q&A sessions, I'll just run through a few house rules. We'll start off with our question of the week that we posted out across social media on Monday, and we'll go through the answer to that question. And then while you're putting your questions in the chat, so please do put your questions in the chat, we'll go through some of the questions we didn't get round to answering in previous Q&A sessions. Please remember that there's no such thing as a stupid question, only stupid answers. So you know, anything that you've got, if it's that question that you've always wanted to know the answer to, we'll try and help. We don't claim to know everything, but we'll try. You know, please be respectful to each other in the chat. So the whole idea of this evening is that collectively we'll help each other with the aim of improving our collective knowledge of all things BS 7671 and the world of electrical installation. So without further ado, we'll have a look at this week's question of the week. And the question of the week was regarding solar PV. So question was, an overload protection device is generally required for PV strings in a solar voltaic PV system when there are, and then you had to fill in the gaps, how many strings in parallel. And your options were A, 1 or more strings, B, 2 or more strings, C, 3 or more, or D, 4 or more strings. So what was our answer to that, Dean?
Well, the answer, Sam, is, drum roll, it is C, 3 or more strings.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we can we'll show you now where we get that from. If you look in 7671 in regulation, it will tell you there quite clearly where more than 2 PV strings are connected in parallel and the following conditions are met, then an overload protective device is required to protect each of the strings. So more than 2 PV strings means it's 3 or more PV strings that require to have a protective device. We should also mention there is a caveat in the same regulation that talks about, in certain circumstances, several parallel strings can be protected by a single device, and there's a reference there to regulation 712-431-102, and where overload protection is required, both polarities of the string shall be protected. So that's both sides of that DC. Anything you'd add to that? I mean, you're one of our MCS assessors as well as electrotechnical, aren't you, Dean? So solar PV side, seeing a big in rush again of solar PV installations?
Yes, we are at the minute, Sam. Obviously, we're always taking on new applicants for the MCS with regards to PV and battery storage, and we see some great work out there from our contractors as well. They've got such good knowledge. They're doing their CPD. They're all qualified, trained, got the experience, etc. And we do have these fantastic questions that do come up a lot during the MCS visits as well. And some of these questions are relative to what we're talking about tonight. I did speak to one of my contractors today, happened with regards to overload protection, and we referred back to the IET Code of Practice for battery storage to get some fair advice with regards to strings. Sorry, not the battery storage, but with regards to solar voltaic, because the guidance is fantastic. So you've got BS 7671 and you've got the industry Code of Practice to refer to, and it's something that obviously a lot of contractors may not be used to, because they may just be doing smaller systems as opposed to the larger types. So it's good for them to get their heads back in the book and just make sure they're doing things correctly as part of the design process.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, in general, we are seeing an increase in solar PV, particular domestic, and that's a mix of both new PV new builds, which are including PV, and then also PV being added to existing buildings, and those that already had PV are then being extended with battery storage. So we are really seeing a sort of a new life being led into that area of the industry.
Yeah, and it's good to see that fact that the contractors that are doing this work, where they might be an existing installation, have the understanding to offer the clients that the best options, whether installing battery storage for existing, whether it be an AC coupled system, or whether they're going to replace part of the existing system and turn it into a DC coupled system, because there's benefits on both sides of how you look at it. So at least our contractors have the knowledge and experience, understanding to give that information to the client to help them make the best decision based on what they're trying to gain from the installations. Yep. So yeah, that's off. We're doing great out there.
Yeah. Okay, so please do put your questions into the chat, and while we're waiting for some questions to come in, we'll go through some that have been held over from previous ones. So the first one of those tonight is a question that we do get quite often on existing installations. So an engineer has asked, do I need to replace a bonding connection if it's more than 600 mil from the place where the gas pipe work enters the property? So the pipe work is bonded, but it's just not within 600 mil of where it enters the property. So do I need to replace it? In a nutshell, no, there's no requirement, a blanket requirement to replace it, because if we look at that regulation that talks about the requirement, it does say where practical or where practicable the connection shall be made within 600 mil. So that tells us that we've got some engineering judgment that it doesn't have to be spot on 600 mil. It's where it's practical, and so if there is no practical point of connection, it could be made at a different distance. The things to do is just verify that the pipe work is actually adequately bonded through inspection and or testing, so we can make sure that it is. So when the existing bond connection is okay, make sure that it doesn't need to be replaced, and also that the point of connection is before any branches or sections of insulating material, because obviously sometimes we do go away from copper and then return to it. So make sure that it's before there are any insulating sections, and have an engineering judgment as to think, well, why is that bonding connection where it is? And it could be that it's actually in a better place than exactly 600 mil from the meter outlet, because it might be in a better location for future test and maintenance purposes. So that's one thing where, you know, it would be more practical to locate it if, because of the arrangement of the incoming and the meter outlet, 600mm would put it in a place where it was impractical to maintain it and impractical to look at it in the future. So it might be a reason. So in a nutshell, there's nothing that says it has to be 600. It's where practical, and of course there may be a better place, in particular with regards to future test and maintenance purposes. So if a more durable location is better, then obviously put it there. Anything you'd add to that?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's a great question. This is the sort of thing that we come across on a regular basis doing the assessments, and we do discuss this with our contractors. I suppose the thing to bear in mind is what you said, Sam, is although you're trying to achieve that 600mm, if it's not practicable, then don't make the connection there, because if you can't access it for maintenance purposes and periodic inspection testing, fault find, etc., then you've got to look at the next best alternative, and it might not be 600mm from where you want it to be. So it's a case of, like you said, apply your engineering judgments, think of the foresight of installation, speak to the client, ask them what's going to be done around the area, and if it's going to get closed up, that connection point is not going to be good. For access reasons and testing purposes, 600mm from the union part. So yeah, apply engineering judgment, make sure you can do your testing. Any concerns on the certificate, document it in part 3, comments on existing installation, and apply due diligence. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, another one that we have, again, is quite a common question that we get. Do all electrical installations require EICRs? So somebody's been somewhere, a non-domestic installation, that they've asked for previous condition reports, and the reply they got back was, we don't do that. So do all installations require EICRs, Dean?
Quite simply, the answer is no. And obviously we can carry on from that. So what you've got to consider is the fundamental principles within BS 7671. And what it does, it says it recommends that every installation, electrical installation, is subjected to periodic inspection testings in accordance with Chapter 65. So it is a recommendation only to carry out that type of testing and inspection installation. There's further regulations to apply to, depending on considerations such as whether the system has an effective preventive maintenance program in place. Then that might be replaced for the option of periodic inspection testing, because it's being checked on a regular basis, obviously ensuring that this work is being done by a skilled person who is competent in that scope of work. Remember, anything that you do, if it's not periodic inspection testing, or it is to document it, keep records, and make sure these records are appropriate as well. So you've got something to reflect back onto, to do a comparison, to see if things are starting to become defective or deteriorate. So basically, no. Due diligence, PPMs in place, may not need periodic inspection testing, or vice versa. If concerns are drawn towards the safety of installation, then you would call upon an electrically skilled person to do some checks for you. Yeah,
and as you say, preventative periodic maintenance. You know, I came where I did my apprenticeship. It was a factory, and we were involved in automation and manufacturing plants. And in those days, they would have planned shuts, and they would shut everything down for a limited period, and in that time they would do all of their preventative maintenance tasks. So because they did that periodically, they didn't actually do condition reporting every so many years, because they'd already catered for those instances throughout the annual year where they had planned shutdowns for preventative maintenance. And if you look on the screen now, we also took a pic from from the electricity at work regs, where it says as may be necessary, all systems shall be maintained, but it doesn't specifically say that's through periodic inspection and tests, so there are other methods allowed.
Yeah, and again, just making sure you can keep records of what's being carried out, so there's a good audit trail in place in the unlikely event of something occurring in the future.
Yeah, but you're spot on in that if you've got those records, you can prove that you've done things reasonably practical to maintain the safe operation, haven't you? So yeah, the records are important. Another one. So during a consumer unit replacement, a borrowed neutral is found between the upstairs and downstairs lighting circuit, which regulation prohibits this? So we had an engineer asking on a domestic, because they were doing a periodic inspection of the domestic installation and wanted to know what should they do, and were quite old school in that they didn't want to put an observation down unless they could put a regulation against it, which is good practice. So they asked, and what we found, what our advice to them was simply that the best regulation is there on screen now. We're showing it, and it's 521.8.2, which states that the line and neutral conductors of each final circuit shall be, so it's a regulatory requirement, shall be electrically separate from those of every other final circuit, so as to prevent the indirect energizing of a final circuit intended to be isolated. So the situation with a borrowed neutral would mean that you may feel that you've isolated the circuit, but because that's borrowed, it's also supplied from another circuit, then it means your neutral won't be isolated. So that's still considered a live conductor and therefore a potential shock risk. So you do have to ensure that it's isolated. So that reg tells us that the line and neutral conductors of each final circuit shall be electrically separate from every other final circuit, so that you can uniquely identify it and uniquely isolate it with a single protective device or a single means of isolation. So yeah, very important. Often found typically on the landing light, where you've got controls upstairs and downstairs, that they've done it through a borrowed neutral.
Yeah.
Anything you'd add there?
No, again, great question to be asked. This is going to occur a lot in the older installations where you find you've got the borrowed neutral. You know, do your checks effectively. You know, isolate, check, make sure it is isolated. Don't assume nothing. You know, apply safe working practices, follow what's necessary, and just make sure that you are disconnecting the right conductors, and that you're not obviously putting yourself at risk or others at risk. And obviously then you can then discuss the outcome with the client on how to move forward to rectify the problem, which sometimes is not as easy as what it's made out to be, but at least it's been identified and it can be addressed as well.
Yeah. Okay, another one that's a good question, and we do have a nice definitive answer. So in an industrial installation, they had a medical emergency shower in the workplace, and that was due to the operation and the equipment and products that they were using. So they had it was a chemical process involved with production, and because of that they had to have a medical emergency shower, and they noticed the things about socket outlets in association with that shower. So they asked the question, we've got a medical emergency shower in the workplace due to some of the chemical processes involved with production. Does the 2.5 metre socket rule still apply to a workplace shower? And what's our feelings and thouts there, Dean?
Going to throw a straight no in there, Sam. a definitive no. I'm going to give a bit of explanation behind it. In what you've got to be mindful of is special locations, there's information available in there. If it is an emergency shower, as the topic we're talking on is, and it's only used as part of an emergency procedure, then the requirements that would be associated within the area of the shower and its location do not comply with the standard requirements of 701 in BS 7671. It's quite clearly stated this section does not apply to emergency facilities such as emergency showers used in industrial areas or laboratories. Obviously, it still needs to comply with all other relevant regulations, parts 1 to 6 and BS 7671. Obviously, also including a regulation we're going to put out there, 512.2.1, which makes it clear equipment shall be of a design appropriate to the situation in which it is being used, or its mode of installation shall take account of the conditions likely to be encountered. Other words, is it fit for purpose for that environment?
Yeah.
So going back to the answer, it's a no.
Yeah, and that's on the basis that it's a different situation to a traditional shower, a domestic shower, where people are going to be completely unclothed, probably unsupervised. Now we're talking about a workplace emergency shower where people will be closed. There will possibly be other people involved. So we've got a whole different scenario, and the perceived risks of electric shock are very different. And the shower's not going to be frequently used, so that the electrical hazards and the protection against those hazards doesn't need to be as onerous than your typical domestic shower or general shower, which is frequently used. So that's why it's treated differently, because although it's a shower, it's for completely different purpose, and therefore the perceived risk of electric shock is very different. Another one, nice and simple to respond to, is can the removal of a plug from a socket outlet be used as a means of isolation in accordance with 7671? So this is a great example, would be in a domestic situation, in particular within our kitchen or utility area, where we're looking at how can we isolate that item of equipment, that appliance, and can I rely on the socket outlet? Well, in simple terms, yes. BS 7671 says that you can rely on a socket outlet. Certainly a BS 1363 or BS 63-1 or 63-2 device, and within 7671 there's a table, nice and clear, table 537.4 pardon me, which tells us all of our devices, which ones can be used for isolation purposes. So that clearly says it can be. So it can be used. You do need to still comply with the other requirements of isolation, and in particular there's a fundamental reg which says it must be suitably placed for ready operation. So you then have to think about, okay, well, if it is suitably placed for ready operation, then fine, so that I can use it to cut off all voltages from that item of equipment. But if I need to pull the item of equipment forward first to be able to get at the plug, then you have to question, is that really suitably placed for ready operation in the event of an emergency or when I want to remove danger. So yes, a plug can be used, but it needs to also comply with that fundamental requirement that says it has to be suitably placed for ready operation. Okay, please do put your questions in. One question that has come in is from one of the engineers tonight. Any chance of running over the Beamer update to Type B RCDs for heat pumps? One thing I will say, we are going to talk about, we've got we're just actually putting together our wire topics, our wire webinar topics for the next season, which starts at the beginning of May, and heat pumps and RCDs are one of those topics. So we know that BEMA have published it. We know also that the Heat Pump Association have published some information which they involved us in producing. They also involved colleagues from NICEIC, so you know, both major electrical installation certification bodies were involved in that. So so yeah, please do reference that. It's freely available from the Heat Pump Association, and that will do it. But also, as I say, coming very soon, it will be a wire webinar specifically on heat pumps, and it will also hone in and cover the issue around the Type B RCD. Something you've been made aware of yet, Dean?
Yeah, it's been discussed in the renewables team, those who are doing the MCS assessments. And funny enough, when we were at the Elect show in London last week, there was a Hager stand there, and there's many other stands there, just this particular stand. And we did have a chat to the reps there, and we had a little talk about this particular topic of the types of devices for air source heat pumps in a minute. So it is a hot topic. Everyone is now starting to gather their information and put it out there. So bear with us. We will get some really good information out there. We'll have a good old chat about it and put you guys in the clear and give you all the understanding and knowledge you need to know moving forward.
Yeah. We'll pick up. There's another question. So please, if you do have some questions, we've certainly got time, and we will try and answer them. Another one that's just come in is an engineer. Again, quite a common topic, if a specific question. So this engineer is asked. They've noticed an installation where the incoming supply cable, and they've clarified that's the cable before the electricity meter, has been routed through the consumer unit enclosure, and they're asking about possible classification code or comment should be included in an EICR. So one thing I would say is we do have to, although before the meter is actually technically not part of the installation, it is covered by a typical condition report, but it doesn't directly affect the outcome of the installation, but an inspection should certainly be carried out. I think with that situation, although a little bit unusual, it's not necessarily dangerous or potentially dangerous, unless of course you've noticed that because of the way it's been taken through the consumer unit, the cable sheath's been damaged, for example, or there's some other notice, maybe cable's been bent so that the bending radius is greater than that's what's expected for the size of cable. So just because it's been routed through the consumer unit wouldn't necessarily introduce a danger, either potentially or current, but it would be worth noting, because obviously that's a supply cable which is protected by the cutout fuse and not protected by a protective device within the installation. So that would be worthy of note, that even when, for example, you switch off the main switch of the consumer unit, those cables, the incoming supply cables, are still going to be live. But that's no different really if you think about, those are the cables that come into the top of the main switch anyway. So that would still be live. But yeah, that's what I would suggest. No blanket code or concern. Something to make note of so that people are aware. But unless there's something that you've observed which raises concerns, wouldn't suggest giving it a classification code. And as we said, those are parts which are not part of the installation and should therefore only really be inspected rather than tested. Anything else you can think of, Dean?
I was just thinking, would it be right to possibly contact the supplier and just give them some feedback on that to see how they would like to address it or not, or any information they can give back to the contractor and the duty holder of the installation, just to make them aware of it, because it's something that obviously I've never come across. I guess it doesn't happen regularly. It'd be good to know what their response would be, so we can obviously advise moving forward. I can't think of anything else apart from what you said, apart from would it be worth contacting the supplier and letting them know about it.
Yeah. Okay, so please do post any questions that you've got in the chat. Another one we've got, which again is a common question. So on a TT system, can a circuit breaker without RCD protection be installed if the loop value is within limits? So generally we think of a TT system having a high earth fault loop impedance, which generally means that we can't rely on an overcurrent protective device such as a circuit breaker because we can't achieve its maximum ZS. But some TT systems, for example a large steel structured building, may have a very low value due to the large amount of steel, and 7671 says you can rely on it, because it does say you can either the preferred protective device is an RCD, but you can rely on an overcurrent protective device if that device allows for fault protection based on its low value of ZS and it's permanently and reliably assured. So that's referring to the fact that that steel structure, for example, in the building is going to remain generally for the lifetime of the building. So not only can you rely on it now, but you'll be able to permanently rely on it. The difference, for example, if you were reliant on a water or gas service pipe, is that service provider may change that pipe work, and then all of a sudden you've lost your nice low source of an earth fault loop path. So you can rely on a circuit breaker if you've got a suitably low value of ZS and it's permanently and reliably assured. So that means it will maintain that low value for the life cycle of the building. Anything you'd add to that one, Dean?
No, I think it's a great question, great answer from yourself, Sam. Like I say, structural seal will give multiple points of contact to earth. The likelihood of that value changing significantly is going to be massively reduced. Just go to the tables in chapter 41 of the regs book and measure it and do a cross-reference to the tabulated values to make sure that it can offer the disconnection times required.
Yeah. We've got another question that's come in. Can I use an electrical installation condition report to record remedial work? So again, a frequently asked question. And what's our thoughts there, Dean?
Oh, it's a tough one, Sam. I'm not too sure about that. Can I get a 50-50? Can I ask I'm going to ask a friend, Sam. I'm going to have to say no, Sam. No.
Yeah, it's the condition report has got a specific purpose, and it's for reporting on the condition of an installation. If the remedial work requires certification, so you may be installing a new circuit, you may be installing a new consumer unit, in which case it's going to need an installation certificate, or you may be adding or altering an existing circuit, in which case you might be able to use a minor works. So no, you can't use a condition report to record remedial work if that work is of a certain substance that it requires certification. Sometimes it's just a replacement of an accessory for a like-to-like, so strictly speaking it doesn't need certification, but we would still recommend recording what you've done, recording the results of any relevant pertinent tests, and recording anything else that you notice about the installation. And so if you're going to do that, a minor work certificate is a great format to do all those three things. So yeah, we always suggest considering using at least a minor work certificate, but certainly you can't record that installation work if it's required as part of the remedial work. You can't record that on your condition report.
Yeah, I mean, you refer to BS 7671 Appendix 6. It gives you all the information you need to know with regards to the appropriate certificate for the scope of work, and gives you the information with regards to EICRs as well. So,
okay, we've got a bit of time. Can I, so if you have got a question, we will do our best to try and answer it. Again, a common question: can I run two circuits in the same SWA multi-core cable? Again, we get answered that a lot, and the nice simple answer: yes, you can. There's a regulation in section 5 in the 521 series that says it specifically says two or more circuits are allowed in the same cable, providing the requirements of section 528 are met, and that's with association to proximity of wiring systems. Make sure that if it is a multi-core cable, that it's insulated for the highest voltage which is likely to be present in that cable. So you need to make sure also that if you've got band 1 and band 2 separated cores, that then you need some further equipment in terms of making sure that they're separated, and that there's not going to be any detrimental effect between the two circuits. But in principle you can run two or more circuits in the same multi-core cable.
Yeah, spot on, Sam. 528's all there. Start with page 151 in the big brown book. Just put your head in there and have a look, and what Sam said will be confirmed in that document. Spot on, Sam.
Another question that's come in, which is not strictly technical, but we'll certainly answer it because I think it is a very relevant question. So an engineer has posted in the chat: is an NICEIC assessment classed as CPD, and so therefore should I record 8 hours for an approved contractor assessment? Certainly, if you look at the definition of an assessment, portion of that assessment should be developmental, absolutely. So yes, there will certainly be a proportion of it which could be recorded as CPD, absolutely. And yeah, great opportunity. I think one of the things that a lot of our contractors value is having that opportunity to talk to, we've got an awful lot of sole traders, and we speak to them on the helpline. I'm sure Dean speaks to them when he arrives to do the assessment. But what we find with many sole traders is that they get up in the morning and they know exactly what they're going to do, and then they go to the wholesalers on the way to the job to pick up the kit, and they get speaking to somebody in the queue who puts a little bit of doubt in their mind, shall we say, because they would have done it differently. And then they get to the job, and the customer says, oh, by the way, I've been speaking to a retired engineer who lives next door, and he said you should be doing X, Y, Z. So now they've got two bits of doubt in their mind, and they end up ringing us to sort of say, and 9 times out of 10 they were right first time, and just needed somebody to bounce that off. And I think that's the same feeling that we get on assessments. Sometimes people have been saving their questions up till their assessment time, they've had such a good informative assessment that they then start asking the questions that they've always wanted to know the answer to. So absolutely, the assessment, part of the assessment, if not the majority of the assessment, should be developmental, absolutely, and so therefore can absolutely be recorded as CPD.
Yeah.
I know you're going to say that all of yours are CPD, aren't they, Dean?
Well, I would. Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to give a definitive amount of hours to the CPD as the engineer was asked in the initial question, but yet there will be so much CPD that will be coming through the assessment, through the management system audits, right through to the certification reporting, the understanding of safe working practices, the health and safety side, the technical aspects, supervision levels. It's all CPD. We're doing assessments on the contractor. They are giving us the information that we expect to hear. And they're also referring to standards, and they're also picking up some new information along the way. It's a great load of CPD. Yeah. Important to retain it and get it documented. The amount of hours is negotiable, I would like to say. 8 hours of an assessment, I doubt I'll be remembering much after that anyway, to be honest. But yeah, there's going to be so much you can take from it. So yeah, it does count.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we'll take, there's a few more that I think we can do fairly quickly. So the first one is, can I have TNCS and TT earthing system for an outside building, wood construction combined? So we shouldn't have two different earthing systems in the same installation. For example, they shouldn't be simultaneously accessible, because that could introduce two different potentials straight away. So there should be a single earthing system. What the question might be asking, and I'm making a bit of an assumption here which is possibly risky, is that you might want to convert part of the installation to a different earthing system, which is possible, because you might not, for example, want to export one earthing system to another area for a number of reasons. So it's possible to separate and then effectively have two installations fed from a common supply, but they've got distinct different earthing systems and they're not simultaneously accessible. But yeah, you shouldn't have simultaneously accessible alternate earthing systems, because of that potential for them people to simultaneously access them and become the conductor between the two different potentials.
Yeah, and what did the question mention, the type of structure, Sam? It
said for an outside building, wooden construction, but then combined. So I'm not sure whether they were talking about the earthing systems being combined or...
Oh, the material.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we've done a great webinar on that as well, haven't we? Supplies to our buildings.
Yeah, there's plenty of articles, because there was, there used to be in the early days a myth to say that I can't export TNCS, which there's nothing in 7671 that says you can't export, but sometimes it means you need a larger bonding conductor than supply, in which case then it's not reasonably practical.
Yeah, I think the confusing thing there is it's the structure of the building. You've got to take away the fact, are there going to be any conductive parts that need to be considered, for want of a better word. That's what throws people a lot when it comes to our buildings, generally anyway. Yeah.
And another one from the chat is a 400 volt label still required on equipment with 3-phase, or is this not applicable anymore as the voltage to earth is only 230? So actually it was never a requirement, because it's only a requirement where you've got voltages to earth greater than 230. So yeah, it was often misused, because otherwise you would have to put it on every 3-phase board, for example. So no, it's not a requirement, only when there's a voltage to earth greater than 2-3 volts. So not a 400 volt line voltage.
Yeah, and obviously the labelling section within BS 7671 will give you more information with regards to that as well.
Okay, and we'll finish off with just the last one, which is nice and clean again. So we had a request for information regarding an agricultural installation and electric fences. So are the requirements for electric fences on a farm covered by the special location section 705 for agricultural and horticultural premises? And again, nice and simple, no. But that isn't, you won't find that information specifically stated in section 705 under it, but it's clearly stated that electric fences are covered by a different standard outside of 7671, and that's listed in the exclusions right at the front of the book. So that's where it tells us that the animal associated electric fences aren't anything to do with 7671.
Yeah, 110.2 covers the exclusions, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Once again, we've run out of time. We've got a few bits of housekeeping to do, and we've got our first installation, NICEIC Installation Award to announce. So that's something that we're looking forward to doing and telling people more about. But before we get there, just a few other things. First of all, if you haven't already downloaded the NICEIC Pocket Guide, please do. Some great valuable information on that. All of the old Pocket Guide cards that we used to, there are some calculators on there, including the adiabatic equation, including a cross-reference for if on condition reports or installation certificates, if you measure a resistance, it will give you if you plug in the resistance you've measured and the size of cable, a rough length of what it should be, and you can do a sanity check. Does that sound right, that I've got 250 meters of 2.5 cable in this 2-bed semi? So those calculators in the Pocket Guide app, really useful.
Just a note on that, Sam, as well. Sorry to cut you up. It's also got the assessment essentials section in there for your for all of the relevant documents you need, the links to it. So it saves you a lot of time preparing for your assessments as well. So, sorry. Yeah.
No, it's brilliant, and we find that these day and age, most people have their phone on them, and if you've got your phone on you, then you've got access to the Pocket Guide app. So please do download it. Really valuable tool. We've got the wire. So for the NIC registered contractors, the wire webinars, there's a short break, the last one last week on automatic disconnection supply, and as I said, we've got the spring season coming up from early May to the summer, and we've got webinars planned on subjects including solar PV, heat pumps, frequently asked questions to the helpline, and Mythbusters as well. So yeah. Oh, and BS 5839, the fire standard, which is due to be updated. So please do keep an eye on our social media and on the NIC web page for updates, and as soon as they're acknowledged, we'll let you know, and you can start to register for those wire webinars. Please do keep in touch. We've got all of the latest industry news across our social media platforms, so X, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Please do keep in touch with us, and really proud now to announce the first winner of the NICEIC Installation Award. Congratulations to DRB UK Maintenance, and in particular Jason Boyle, who put the installation forward, gave us lots of information about it and a write-up. It's a very large EV charging installation in the north of the country, but considered to be one of the first of its kind, certainly in the UK. So multiple EV charging locations. You can see very briefly from that picture there, nice huge layout. So we've got a big distribution of lighting and power, plus that great use of EV technology, and we'll be sending out further information about that installation both across social media and in our Connections magazine. So yeah, big congratulations to DRB UK Maintenance, the first of winners of the NICEIC Installation Award. As you can see from the slide that's posted, the next period's up now, so you've got until the 30th of June to put forward your assessment. And you know, as we've said before, the whole idea of this is we get to see an awful lot of bad pictures of installations, and we're trying to promote the positive side. So if you've done an installation that you're proud of, and it could be a huge one like this first example, but maybe it's the apprentice who's dressed his first distribution board or consumer unit. You know, it doesn't have to be huge, but just tell us why you consider it that it should be recognised as our installation of the period award. So please do, and the prize is that you can win NIC training up to the value of over £1,000. So typically you're looking at a week's course, which you choose. Could be a whole week's course, or could be some multiple shorter courses. So great prize for a great competition, and really we're trying to, you know, get some great installations out there, show people how good our industry is, and proud of, rather than just showing the bad ones that people do come across. So yeah, please do. If you're an NIC contractor, you can submit your installation for entry into that competition.
Well done to the winner, by the way. Yeah, congratulations. The installation looks phenomenal. So hats off to you. All credit. Well done.
Yeah, no, it does look really good.
Yeah.
And so we've run out of time again. This is always the quickest 45 minutes of my month, so really good. Thanks very much for those that did participate and bang their questions in. Hopefully we answered them for you. If we didn't get round to your question tonight, then we'll store it up and use it as one of the questions that we come to next time. And with regards to Q&A, the next time is on screen now. It's going to be the first Thursday of May, which just happens to be Thursday, May the 1st. So please do put that in your calendar as the next opportunity to be able to participate in one of these live Q&A sessions. Thanks, Dean. Always good again, and don't know when the next time I'll get to see you in person, which makes a change, but yeah, appreciate tonight. And how have you enjoyed it?
Oh, I love it, Sam. As always, it's such a pleasure to work alongside you and to be able to make contact with the industry and bring up some good discussion points, relevant discussion points, be able to give you some information that's going to help you along the way. Keep the questions coming in, keep coming back to us, reach out to us. We are there for you. We enjoy doing this, we get great pleasure from it. The more interaction for us, the better. So just keep on doing what you're doing best.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. Great everybody. Thank you.
No, it's good. Every day's a school day. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, and we're constantly learning, which sometimes we can find frustrating. But then we think, oh right, that's another bit of knowledge. I can't wait till somebody asks me a question about that. So yeah, always good. So yeah, until the next time, just once more, congratulations to DRB UK Maintenance and Jason Boyle and his team. So superbly well done. And thanks very much for your participation tonight. Thank you.